It was at that time that Suddhana the youth then gradually acquired the ocean of all practices and vows of Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, to a degree bound before long to equal that of Samantabhadra himself, as he also became bound to attain equality with all Buddhas in the following things: equality in filling all worlds and kshetras with a single body, equality in practices, equality in right enlightenment, equality in spiritual superknowledges, equality in turning the Dharma wheel, equality in eloquence, equality in the use of language, equality in the use of voices, equality in the powers and fearlessnesses, equality in the stations dwelt in by the Buddhas, equality in the great kindness and compassion, and equality in the inconceivable liberations and sovereign masteries. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva Mahasattva then spoke the following verses. You should all rid yourself of the afflictions, defilements, and listen closely and single-mindedly without distraction, as I speak about the perfections that the Tathagata possesses and the genuine path leading to all the liberations. As for that supreme world-transcending trainer of beings, his mind is as pure as empty space. He forever emanates the brilliant light of the Sun of Wisdom, and everywhere causes the many beings to dispel the darkness of delusion. The Tathagata is one who is difficult to ever see or hear, yet after countless kotis of kalpas, now one encounters him. This is like the Udampara blossoms appearing but once in an eon. Therefore, you should listen to this account of the Buddha qualities. He adapts to everything those in the world do, and, like a master conjurer, manifests the many kinds of actions, doing so solely to please the minds of beings. This even as he never discriminates or produces any thoughts. Having heard what was spoken, those bodhisattvas then gazed up in single-minded anticipation, wishing only to be able to hear about genuine meritorious qualities of the Bhagavat. They all had then this thought: Samantabhadra Bodhisattva is one who completely cultivates all the practices, one whose essential nature is pure, one whose every pronouncement is never false, and one whom all Tathagatas join in praising. Having had this thought, they were then filled with deeply felt anticipation. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, completely adorned with meritorious qualities and wisdom, and like a lotus flower in his freedom from the 3 realms of defilements, then spoke to those bodhisattvas, saying, You should all listen closely, for I now wish to describe the characteristics of but a single drop of the Buddha's ocean of meritorious qualities. He then spoke the following verses. The reach of the Buddha's wisdom is as vast as space, for it extends everywhere to the minds of all beings. It completely knows all the discursive thoughts of those in the world, but never gives rise to the many kinds of different discriminations. In but one mind moment, he knows all dharmas of the 3 realms, and also completely knows the faculties of all beings. He is like a great and skillful master conjurer, manifesting boundless phenomena in each ensuing moment. He adapts to beings' minds and many different practices, as well as to the power of all their past karma and aspirations, thereby causing what each of them sees to differ, and yet the Buddha never has any movement of thought. Some beings see the Buddha seated everywhere, completely filling up all world systems throughout the 10 quarters, whereas other beings whose minds are impure will pass through countless kalpas and never see the Buddha. Some beings with resolute faith who have abandoned arrogance upon forming the intention are immediately able to see the Tathagata, whereas others with impure minds, prone to flattery and deception, may search for him for a koti of kalpas and still never encounter him. Some beings hear the voice of the Buddha in all places, his voice exquisite, sublime, and causing their minds to be delighted, even as others go for 100,000 myriads of kotis of kalpas, and because their minds are impure, never hear it at all. Some beings see pure and great bodhisattvas, completely filling up the world systems of the great Tripitaka, who have already completely fulfilled Samantabhadra's practices, and in whose midst the Tathagata sits in majestic splendor. Some beings see this realm as incomparably marvelous, as adorned and purified by the Buddha for countless kalpas, and see Vairocana, the most supremely revered one, awakening there and realizing Bodhi. Some beings see the supremely marvelous lotus flower Chestra, in which Bhadrashi Tathagata abides, surrounded by a congregation of countless bodhisattvas, all of whom have diligently cultivated Samantabhadra's practices. Some beings see the Buddha Amitayus, surrounded by Avalokiteshvara and others, who all already dwell on the crown anointing consecration ground, and who completely fill up all world systems in the 10 directions. Some beings see this Tripitaka with the many kinds of adornments like those of Abhirati, in which Akshobhya Buddha dwells, attended by bodhisattvas such as Ganhahastin. Some beings see the bodhisattva Chandrabodhi, Mahayasa, and Vajrabanner, as well as others who, abiding like marvelous adornments reflected in a mirror, everywhere pervade the pure Shastras throughout the 10 directions. Some beings see Suryagarbha, revered by the entire world, dwelling in his fine radiance pure land, together with bodhisattvas at the crown anointing consecration stage, who everywhere fill the 10 directions and expound on the Dharma. Some beings see Vajra's great flaming radiance Buddha, together with wisdom banner bodhisattva, who travel everywhere to all the vast Shastras, and by teaching the Dharma extinguish beings' obscurations. On the tip of every hair there are an ineffable number of Buddhas, perfectly endowed with the 32 major marks, who are all surrounded by a retinue of bodhisattvas, and who, in many different ways, teach the Dharma to liberate beings. Some beings contemplate one pore and see vast Shastras, graced with perfectly complete adornments, in which countless Tathagatas all reside, and pure sons and daughters of the Buddha fill them all. Some beings see within but a single atom a Ganges sands of Buddha lands completely present therein, all of which are filled with countless bodhisattvas who cultivate all the practices for an ineffable number of kalpas. Some beings see, on the tip of a single hair, countless oceans of Shastras as numerous as dust and sands, all arising from the many kinds of karma, each individually distinct, in which Vairocana Buddha resides, turning the wheel of the Dharma. Some beings see world systems that are impure, whereas others see worlds composed of pure jewels, where Tathagatas abide for lifespans of limitless duration, in which they display many appearances up until they enter nirvana. They everywhere pervade all worlds of the 10 directions, and present many different kinds of inconceivable manifestations, adapted to all beings' minds, knowledge, and karmic circumstances, having no one they fail to teach, liberate, and enable to attain purity. It is in this way that the unexcelled great guides fill all lands throughout the 10 directions and manifest many different powers of the spiritual super-knowledges. As I describe only a small fraction of them, you should listen closely. Some beings see Shakyamuni realizing Buddhahood, but as having gone an inconceivable number of kalpas since doing so. Other beings see him as just now beginning as a bodhisattva who is benefiting all beings throughout the 10 directions. Some beings see this lion of the Shakya clan making offerings to all Buddhas and cultivating the path, while yet others see this most supremely honored one among all men manifesting many different powers and feats of the super knowledges. Some beings see him practicing giving, some as observing precepts, some as practicing patience, some as cultivating vigor or the dhyanas, prajna, skillful means, vows, the powers, or the types of knowledge, as they manifest all of these while adapting to the minds of beings. Some beings see him as perfecting the paramitas, whereas others see him as securely abiding on the grounds, or as bringing forth the ranis, the samadhis, the super knowledges, or wisdom, endlessly appearing in all ways such as these. For some, he appears as cultivating for countless kalpas and as abiding in the bodhisattva stage of patience. For some, he appears as abiding on the ground of irreversibility, and for others, as with the waters of the Dharma anointing his crown. For some, he appears in a body of Brahma, Sakra, or a worldly protector, while for others he appears as a Kshatriya or a Brahmin. Manifesting thus, adorned with many different forms and features, he is like a master conjurer, manifesting a multitude of appearances. For some, he appears in Tushita, about to descend and take birth. For others, he is seen in the palace with a retinue of consorts. For yet others, he is seen renouncing all glory and pleasure, leaving home, abandoning the mundane, and training in the path. For some, he is seen just born. For others, he is seen entering nirvana. For others, he is seen leaving home to train in heterodox practices. For yet others, he is seen as sitting beneath the Bodhi tree, as vanquishing Mara's armies, and as gaining right enlightenment. For some, they see the Buddha just then entering nirvana, while for others, they see the building of stupas all over the world. For yet others, they see the erecting of Buddha images in the stupas. It is through knowing the right time that he appears in these ways. Some see him as a Tathagata possessed of limitless life, who bestows on bodhisattvas the Bhagavat's prediction that they will become unexcelled great guides who, while still next to fill that position, will dwell in the land of bliss. Some beings see him as entering nirvana after having accomplished the works of a Buddha for countless kotis of thousands of kalpas, whereas others see him as just now having realized Bodhi. For still others, he is seen as rightly cultivating wondrous practices. Some beings see the pure moon of the Tathagata abiding in the Brahma world, in Mara's palace, in the Vasavartin heaven palace, or in the Nirmana Narati heaven palace, manifesting there many different kinds of spiritual transformations. For some beings, he may be seen in the Tushita heaven palace, surrounded by an audience of countless devas, teaching the Dharma for them, causing them to feel joyous delight, and inspiring them all to resolve to make offerings to the Buddha. For yet others, he may be seen as abiding in the Suyama heaven, the Trestrimsa, or abodes of world protectors, dragons, or spirits. Thus, in this very manner, of all those palaces, there are none in which he does not manifest his appearance. In the presence of Dipamkara Tathagata, he scattered flowers and spread out his hair as he made offerings. Thenceforth he completely understood the deep and sublime Dharma, and always used this path to teach the many kinds of beings. Some observe the Buddha as having long ago entered nirvana, and others see him at the beginning as he first realized Bodhi. Some see him as remaining for countless kalpas, while others see him stay on only a short time and then enter nirvana. His body's signs, his radiance, and his lifespan, his wisdom, his bodhi, and his nirvana, the congregations he teaches, his awesome comportment and voice, the manifestations of every one of these are countless. For some, he manifests his body as so extremely vast that it resembles Sumeru, or an immense mountain of jewels. For others, he is seen as sitting, motionless, in the lotus posture, completely filling all the boundlessly many worlds. For some, he is seen with a halo of light, several yards in diameter. For some, it is seen as spanning 1,000 myriads of kotis of yojanas. For others, he is seen as illuminating countless lands. For still others, his radiance completely fills all kshetras. Some witness the Buddha's lifespan as lasting 80 years. For others, that lifespan is 100,000 myriad kotis of years. For yet others, he is seen as staying for inconceivably many kalpas. In this way, for still others, these perceptions redouble even more. The comprehension of Buddha's wisdom is pure and unimpeded, for in but an instant he knows all dharmas of the 3 times, and knows they all arise from the mind consciousness's causes and conditions, and are created, destroyed, transient, and devoid of inherent nature. Though it is in one kshetra that he achieves the right enlightenment, he also achieves that realization in all places, in all kshetras. They all enter into but a single one, and any single one also enters all. Adapting to beings' minds, he manifests for them all. The Tathagata abides in the unexcelled path, perfects the 10 powers and the 4 fearlessnesses, and is completely possessed of unimpeded wisdom as he turns the Dharma wheel through its 12-phase course. He completely understands suffering, origination, cessation, and path, and distinguishes the dharmas of the 12 causes and conditions. In dharmas, meanings, delight in speech, and unimpeded phrasings, he uses these 4 aspects of eloquence to give extensive discourses. All dharmas are selfless and signless. Karmic action's nature is unproduced, yet they are still never lost. Everything is utterly transcendent and comparable to empty space. Using expedient means, the Buddha distinguishes all these matters. It is in ways such as these that the Tathagata turns the Dharma wheel, thus everywhere causing the lands of the 10 directions to quake, and causing all the palaces, mountains, and rivers to shake. Yet he never causes beings to be frightened by this. The Tathagata everywhere expounds with his vastly resonant voice, adapted to their faculties and desires, enabling them all to understand, and enabling all to resolve to rid themselves of affliction's defilements. This even as the Buddha has never had any thoughts arise. Some beings hear teachings on giving, moral virtue, patience, vigor, dhyana, prajna, skillful means, vows, powers, and knowledge, while others hear teachings on kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity in many different languages specific to each being. Some hear the 4 foundations of mindfulness, 4 right efforts, psychic power bases, faculties, powers, limbs of Bodhi, eightfold path, the types of mindfulness, spiritual powers, calming, contemplation, and countless other kinds of expedients and Dharma gateways. For the 8 divisions of dragons and spirits, humans and non-humans, Brahma heaven lords, Indras, world protectors, and groups of devas, the Buddha uses but one voice to speak the Dharma for them all. That, adapted to their individual type, enables them to all understand. Wherever there are many beings beset with desire, hatred, and delusion, anger, concealment, miserliness, jealousy, arrogance, flattery, or any of the other 84,000 variants of the afflictions, he enables them all to hear his teachings on their antidotal dharmas. For those not yet perfectly cultivating the white dharmas of purity, he enables them to hear teachings on practicing 10 moral precepts. For those already able to practice giving and personal discipline, he enables them to hear a voice teaching about quiescent nirvana. If there are those of inferior resolve, bereft of kindness or compassion, who, detesting samsara, seek their own emancipation, he enables them to hear teachings on the 3 gates to liberation, thereby enabling them to escape suffering and reach nirvana's bliss. Wherever there are those with a pure and vast resolve, who have completely fulfilled the qualities of giving and moral virtue, who draw near to the Tathagata, and who possess kindly sympathy, he enables them to hear teachings on the great vehicle. In some cases, lands hear the teaching of the one vehicle, or perhaps the teaching of 2, 3, 4, or 5, and so forth, in this way on up to their hearing of countlessly many. These are all due to the Tathagata's powers in using skillful means. Though the quiescence of nirvana has never varied, supremacy or inferiority in wisdom and practice still differ. This is just as when, though the empty sky has one essential nature, each bird's capacity for long or short flight differs from the others. So too it is with the Buddha's body and sounds of his voice, that everywhere pervade all realms of empty space, adapting to distinctions in beings' minds and wisdom. Thus, what is heard and what is seen differ in every instance. Due to his past cultivation of all the practices, the Buddha is able to adapt to what is pleasing as he expounds in a sublime voice, doing so without mental planning or thinking of this one or that one. For whom shall I speak? Or for whom shall I not speak? The Tathagata's countenance emits a great radiance that contains 84,000 light rays. So too it is with the Dharma gateways on which he expounds, that everywhere illuminate the worlds, doing away with afflictions. He is completely possessed of pure meritorious qualities and wisdom, and yet always adapts to those throughout the 3 periods of time. Like space, he is free of any defiling attachment, and yet he manifests for the sake of beings. He appears as having the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death, and also appears as abiding for a lifespan and residing in the world. Although he accords with the world in presenting such appearances, his essential nature is pure and the same as empty space. All lands are boundless in number, and the sum of beings, faculties, and desires is also measureless. The Tathagata's wisdom eye clearly sees them all, and adapts to what is fitting in each teaching and revealing Buddha's path. He goes to the very ends of space and the realms of the 10 directions, and in the midst of immense congregations of humans and devas, he adapts to their forms and characteristics, each of which differ. The Buddha's manifestation of his bodies occurs in just this way.